What is up, YouTube, and welcome back to another live stream on high altitude investing. Today is the 6th of December, and it's going to be a good day. Going to be a good live stream. Normally, I do live streams on Fridays, but yesterday was kind of a crazy day for me, so I wasn't able to hop on and do a live stream. Had a lot of stuff going on, but I figured, you know what? I'll hop on today and do a live stream anyways. And yeah, so here I am. Let's share this link here and we'll get started with the live stream. Happy weekend, everybody. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your weekend. And yeah, so let's start off with Bitcoin here. Now, obviously the title of this live stream is Crypto is Not Done Going Up, Big Picture. So in the big picture, I'm still expecting a lot of upside coming for the crypto markets. And also in the short term too, I'm not like bearish at all for the crypto markets in the short term, but I mainly wanted to focus on the bigger picture today and some of the stuff that I'm seeing in the big picture. Miguel, what is up? Thank you for taking some time to tune into today's live stream. And yeah, so let's get started here. So Bitcoin on the 45-minute time frame. In one of my last live streams, I talked about how these markets react to the 50% and the 618 Fibonacci extensions. So if we take our Fibonacci tool here and we go from the bottom to the top, you can see this Fibonacci level, the 618 and the 50%. This is where big whales and big institutions and also algorithms like trading bots and stuff, this is where they're programmed to put their buy orders or their sell orders as well. Because if you're looking at it from the downside, right? So if you're looking at it from swing high to swing low instead of swing low to swing high, then they're shorting these levels right here, you can see. And if you're measuring from swing low to swing high, then they're going long. So as far as Bitcoin on the 45-minute time frame goes, we've already had a positive reaction off the 618 and the 50% level here from swing low to swing high. We had a positive reaction off of that level, came up slightly above resistance here, and then pulled back down to this area of support right here, right? And so now what we're looking at, we can zoom in a little bit here and do the same thing that I just did, which is go from swing low to swing high. And now what we want to see in the short term is we want to see the bulls defend this level, because if there's a lot of buy orders coming in at the 50% and the 618 level here, and this area holds and the bulls defend this area successfully, then we will have a nice upward breakout up through resistance and have a nice move here in the short term. So that's kind of my view in the short term. We want to see a strong reaction off the 618 and the 50% level here on Bitcoin. Now, if we take and we remove our drawing tools here, in the bigger picture, my view on Bitcoin on the daily candlesticks is very bullish based on the S&P 500. So let's pull up the S&P 500 over here. So Bitcoin is behaving a lot more like how the stock market is traded. So if you guys have studied these cycles or looked at these markets very much, then you know the stock market has a tendency to do these big V-shaped recoveries. So let's go to the 12-hour time frame here on the S&P 500. So the S&P 500 will have these big drops like you can see right here, followed by a V-shaped recovery. And if you look at Bitcoin right now, Bitcoin looks a lot like the S&P 500 in this area here. And so what I foresee coming for Bitcoin in the near future is more continuation, more pushing up here off of these lows, and a V-shaped recovery on Bitcoin. Now, like I said, on the 45-minute time frame, we have to maintain that 618 and 50% level, because if those levels aren't going to hold, it's pretty unlikely that this is going to be a local bottom. You know, we could always go down just a little bit deeper because there's still liquidity here on Bitcoin. You know, and if you study these bottoms, a lot of times you can see right here, this would have looked like the bottom, but it came a little bit lower and grabbed more liquidity before the true bottom was in, right? So for some reason on the 45-minute time frame, if we can't hold the 618 or the 50%, it's always possible for us to go a little bit deeper to grab more liquidity. But the way that I would look at that is a lot more like how Bitcoin did that move right here, where there was a false bottom and it went just a little bit lower, but then the true bottom was in. So those are kind of the scenarios I could see on the short term. For now, I'm definitely leaning bullish. I think we're going to hold support on the 618 and the 50%, and we will have a strong bullish reaction off of these lower support levels and start to see a V-shaped recovery coming in this market, just like what happened to the S&P 500 back in April and May of this year. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. What is up, everybody? Arthur, good to see you tuning in to today's live stream. So essentially, watch for a V-shaped recovery on Bitcoin. Watch for a strong recovery. Watch for the 618 and the 50% level to hold. Most people are bearish down here. Most people are going to be calling for really low levels. Unfortunately, that's just because of the fact that most people are delusional and they are going to be completely affected by their emotions in this market. So, yeah, I think that Bitcoin will hold support here. It will have a strong bullish reaction off this lower support level, and we will see a V-shaped recovery for Bitcoin. And I personally think the bottom is in. I don't think we will go any lower for more liquidity, but that would be the only alternative I could see, is like one more little jab, like just a spook, to get people even more bearish before it still proceeds to do a recovery. So that's kind of my view. Now, if we're talking big picture, because I know the daily isn't that big picture, at least not in my book. If we're talking big picture for Bitcoin, this thing's set up to go crazy, you guys. I don't think most people have any idea how bullish Bitcoin really is. Like, most people are just... The thing is people aren't going to think big picture enough. Most of the time, people are always going to be thinking very small-minded. This is why a lot of technologies have like a really hard time being accepted until everybody's using them. Then everybody accepts it as a good thing and they use it. But at the start, there's a lot of resistance because of just the psychology and the human nature involved. People think kind of small-minded a lot of times. And so because they have like a really small picture of reality in life, then they have a tendency to disbelieve in new technologies being adopted, like Bitcoin. Tony, what is up? Thank you for tuning in to today's live stream. Hi, Dallin. What is your best guess of when the alts will be pumping, Q2 or Q3 of 2026? To be honest with you, I see a pump coming for the altcoin markets even before December is over. I see a pump starting for altcoins. But the latest I could see is the first quarter in 2026, so spring in 2026, even like January, February, I could see a run. Like, if we don't see a run on alts before December is over, the latest I could see is January, February, before these altcoins start running. But looking at Bitcoin here, just to, look at the way these trends establish themselves. If you look at the S&P 500 over here, let's go to the 15-day, so we're on the same time frame here. Look at this thing, Look at these drops that happened in the market along the way up. And let me tell you, everybody was trying to call a top on the S&P 500 the entire way up. The entire time. They were trying to call a top, trying to call a top, trying to call a top, just the whole time. And look, it just keeps going higher. Even still, people try to call a top right here. Everybody was trying to call a top, and it's literally breaking out again. So this is the power of a trend, the power of an uptrend of something that has demand. And fact of the matter is, Bitcoin has demand. There's a bunch of demand for Bitcoin. There's a bunch of demand for XRP, for a lot of different cryptos. Consistent demand. So this idea that people are just going to be smart enough to just magically call the top on the entire crypto bull market is ridiculous. You guys aren't that smart. I know you think you are, but you're just not that smart. So just trust the trend. And this is why I get kind of mad when I see people trying to call tops on the markets right now, because that's literally like trying to pick a needle in a haystack. You know, look at the S&P 500. Okay? Even if we go back before 2008, look at this thing. The people that lost were the people that were trying to be bearish, the people trying to call a top on the S&P 500. It just keeps trending higher and higher and higher and higher. This is what an uptrend looks like. You know? And yeah, there was the Great Depression over here. That's really the biggest bear market the S&P 500 has seen. 2009 and 8, mainly 2008, was nothing in terms of percentage gain. This is an 85% decline on the S&P 500 during the Great Depression. But if you go back over here, or back to 2008, I mean, look at the crash right here. 56%. People think that the 2008 was like a big deal. You guys, not really, you know. So the point I'm trying to make is that these markets have a tendency to continue to go up when there's real world demand for something. Price is just going to keep getting driven higher and higher and higher over time. And yes, every once in a great while there'll be a depression or 2008. And yes, we do get recessions. You know, we've had some recessions along the way up here. But not really that big of drops in comparison to 2008 or even the Great Depression. COVID was only 35% down. Everybody freaked out and panic sold all their stocks. They should have panic bought. You know, they should have doubled down on all their positions like Warren Buffett did, because he made a bunch of money buying the dip when the stock market crashed during COVID. So don't try to call a top on Bitcoin, people. Seriously, don't try to. Because you don't know. You know, you don't know where the top is going to be. For all we know, this recent drop that just happened on Bitcoin, if we're to compare, okay, let's look at the S&P 500. We'll zoom out just a little bit better to get even a bigger perspective, okay? If we're to compare these trends, okay, if you look right here, the S&P 500 did an expanded flat correction starting when the internet bubble popped right here, and then when 2008 happened, right? That's an expanded flat correction on the S&P. Well, Bitcoin did an expanded flat correction too. All right? So these charts actually look more similar than you would think they do. And if you look, you know, for all we know, Bitcoin could be right here. This drop that we just had on Bitcoin could be basically a repeat of COVID in terms of where it's at in its trend. So the idea of just, oh, this is the top here at 126 and everybody that doesn't agree with me is an idiot, that's just stupid, you know? And the bulls are actually smart. I've heard this quote said before, and it's actually so true. Dumb bulls will make more money than smart bears. Why? Because the trend is your friend, and if there's real demand for something, the trend is going to continue up over time. You're going to keep getting higher highs and higher lows over time. That's working with the market. That's working with the laws of these markets. So intelligent bears that think that they're going to be able to cherry pick the top in the market, they're going to end up losing a lot of money. They're going to end up being screwed, especially if they don't have stop loss on their positions. You know, if they're just YOLOing short right here and going short in this market. I know what you guys are thinking right now. You guys think that you guys think that this is the top of the market. Not everybody. I know a lot of people on my stream are smart people too, that see these markets similar to the way that I do. But a lot of people right now are trying to call a top on this market. Like a lot of people everywhere. And so I know what you guys are thinking. I know that you think you're smart enough to cherry pick where the top is, but you're not. And I know you want to be, but it's not wise to be. So don't try. Just work with the rules of technical analysis. The trend is your friend. This thing is probably going to keep shooting up higher. It's probably going to go like this, then like this, and then like this. And everybody's going to try to call a top every time it looks like it's slightly bearish. Every time the market starts to pull back at all, they're all going to scream that this is a top on Bitcoin. But the fact of the matter is, Bitcoin probably has more real-world use case value for Bitcoin than the S&P 500 does. Like the crypto markets offers more to the world, the technology of borderless currencies, peer-to-peer payment systems that can't be duplicated. This concept of what Bitcoin and crypto is offers way more value than the stupid S&P 500 does. In the big picture, if you really think about it, that's way more useful. So, and you just have to see the market for what it is. Don't try to get too smart. That's the moral of that whole story. Miguel says Dogecoin birthday today. Tesla to accept Doge for payment. I haven't looked into any of that. I don't know if there's some announcement that I don't know about or something. But yeah, it is. If it's Dogecoin's birthday today, that's pretty cool. Proof of Mind says, what do you think about BitTensor? I like this coin a lot. BitTensor. Let's pull up on the Coinbase chart. So this is just a pretty typical kind of structure here in the market. Even going over to what it's like a normal double bottom looks like, right? So here's the S&P or the NASDAQ composite, okay? So here's the NASDAQ composite index here on the right, and here is BitTensor over here on the left. And what you can see here when you look at this chart, you can see how this big double bottom happened on the NASDAQ composite from 2003 here at the bottom of the internet bubble, coming back up and then crashing again in 2008. Then we have the bottom of the 2008 financial crisis and housing market crash, right? And then the trend established itself again. And when I look at BitTensor right now here on Coinbase, to me, this is the same type of double bottom that happened to the NASDAQ composite index. We have our first low here. We have a secondary low right here, just like the NASDAQ. So I'm really seeing in the near future a reversal for this coin and the beginning of an uptrend. And let's see if we can find a chart with a little bit more data on it as well, because it's always better if you can get more data. This one has a little bit more data here. Let's go like this. Yeah, so even this chart gives us a little bit of a bigger picture view of it. And you can see even on this chart, we have a perfect breakout retest. So this is bullish too. I love this bullwick right here. Bullwicks are awesome to find. If you have, basically what it means is the market tried to drop really hard, but it was unable to keep dropping because there's so many buy orders at those levels that the market comes back up really fast and you get this big wick on the bottom of the chart. So that's kind of a liquidity grab, and a lot of times you'll see that type of stuff at the bottom of markets. I mean, even on the S&P or the the IXIC over here, the NASDAQ composite, you can see this little wick right here, right? Those are bull wicks. Those are liquidity grabs. The market's dropping really fast, but there's so many buy orders, it bounces back up really fast and puts a wick on the bottom of the chart. So that's the kind of stuff that happens when markets are bottoming out. You'll see these liquidity grabs like that. And in fact, this happened everywhere on Binance. Like, let's pull up Theta, for example, okay? If we pull up Theta and we're looking at Theta on the, let's go to the 45-minute time frame, or the daily, I mean. This is exactly what just happened to Theta. Do you see that liquidity grab? Whew. Fast crash followed by a very quick recovery. This was just a bunch of really low fishing orders that the whales had. A fishing order is basically, okay, I really don't think it's going to go this low, but I'm going to put a bunch of buy orders really low just in case. I'm going to fish for a really good entry, you know. And that's exactly what creates these wicks, is these big whales have all these fishing orders placed in the market at really ridiculously low levels that they're like, well, it probably won't go this low, but I'm going to put a bunch of buy orders there just in case. And then you get this drop that happens really fast in the market. All of those orders get filled. It grabs a bunch of liquidity. You can see we're coming back down into this area of liquidity again. And that's really what happens a lot of times at the bottom of markets. That's a very strong bottom signal in the market to see that. It's happened all the time with crypto at local bottoms. John says Theta broke trend. Do you mean broke the downward trending line? Because if you're talking about the downward trending line, yeah, Theta did break above it. See, you can see this downward trending line right here. Theta did start to break above this right here. So that's actually a buy signal here on the daily for Theta. It's super oversold right now. This thing is dirt cheap. There's no reason to be bearish on Theta down here. If anything, this is where you double down on your positions. If you click on the monthly candlesticks here and you zoom out, this is exactly what Cardano already did in its cycle before it pumped in 2021. So this is not the first rodeo of this type of a move in the market. So these things happen so frequently that you can really get an idea of what's going on. Let's go to Binance here. We'll go to the logarithmic scale. I guess we got to go to Cardano versus the... There we go. So you can see here on the daily candlesticks for Cardano, well, let's do a little bit of a bigger time frame so it's easier to see. This is the same thing that happened to Cardano before Cardano pumped in 2021. If you look at, I know it feels like it's over for these markets because we had this crash right here. But this is, if you don't know what capitulation is, go study what capitulation is. It's that point in the market where it drops so hard that people literally completely give up on it. And that is the bottom of the market. That's the best possible time to buy, is when people capitulate and they can't handle it anymore. That's what happens at the bottom of markets. See, this is a reversal after capitulation selling, right? And if you look at Cardano here, in March of 2020, Cardano capitulated. That's what people did. They capitulated. They sold their crypto. Oh, a global pandemic is hitting. But they were also drawing trend lines. They're like, oh, look, this trend line failed. You know, they're like, oh, look, the EMAs have failed. We're below this moving average. We're below that moving average. You should have seen the stuff people were posting about crypto. They capitulate. That's what capitulation looks like. That's what it sounds like. That's what it feels like, is it feels like it's done. Feels like it's over. That, you know, the moon that people wanted to have happen, it's off the table now. That's like the definition, the psychological response that happens when a market capitulates. So I know it feels like this uptrend is done for, right? Like, oh, look, we failed this trend line, you know? We were supposed to hold that trend line and moon like right away. But in order for us to do something like this, see that pump that came afterwards on Cardano? This thing went 150 times in value. Holy cow, 15,000% from the bottom to the top. See how big that run was on Cardano? In order for a run like that to happen, you have to have a drop like this. You have to make everybody think it's not going to happen. Because in order for you to get that big of an effect, you have to have some type of underlying panic sell before it happens. Because these markets are always going to shake the majority out before the real pump comes. And that's what it just did. And so, yeah, I'm super bullish on theta. Don't listen to people on the internet. There's so many people that don't have any idea what they're talking about. Obviously, you can listen to people on the internet, but don't listen to most people on the internet because they don't know what they're talking about. But fact of the matter is, this capitulation on theta, incredible opportunity to be buying theta. You know, I remember people saying this same thing happened with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin in 2000 and let's pull up Bitcoin here. In 2018, when Bitcoin started its bear market, you know what everybody said about Bitcoin? They said, okay, well, I think this 6K support floor is going to hold, but if it goes down to 3K, I'm going to buy in with everything that I have. That's what people were saying on Bitcoin here. But you know what actually happened? Bitcoin felled support and then everybody sold. They didn't buy the dip. Nobody bought the dip right there. Most people didn't buy the dip at 3K, even though they promised everybody that, oh, if it goes for one more low, I'm just going to buy more, you know. So that's the type of thinking that people have. But when capitulation actually happens, nobody wants to touch the market. Why? Because people are too risk averse. They're thinking of, oh, I don't want to lose money. So very few people bought the dip, but I remained bullish during this period because I had seen enough cycles, studied enough cycles to understand what happens when the market goes down to the 786 Fibonacci retracement, which is exactly what happened to Bitcoin at that level. It came right down to the 786 level. You can see from our peak low to our top here, and throw the 786 on. Where are you? There we are. Bitcoin went right down to the 786 level and bottomed out. So you had to remain bullish during capitulation. That's what capitulation is. It's that level where everybody says, oh, if it goes down there, I'm going to buy more. You know, I believe in this project. And they're all on their egotistical high horse. And then when the market actually goes down to that level, like 2 people buy. And it's like the guys with billions of dollars. And nobody thinks they're buying because there's a bunch of negative news. And they make it look like all the big whales are selling. And they make it look like it's over. And you shouldn't have any reason to be bullish on crypto, you know. But that capitulation event is what triggers the bottom in the market. And that's literally what just happened to theta here. Obviously, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, right? You know, that famous quote. Well, look. What do you think just happened on theta? Yeah, it's not exactly the same chart, but what do you think just happened right here? You know, is this drop right here on theta the beginning of a bear market, or have we been in a bear market since 2021? The second answer is the right one. We've been in a bear market on theta since 2021 right here. We've been in a bear market. And we didn't just start a bear market. Otherwise, the price wouldn't have been downtrending for years now. But we did probably just capitulate at the bottom of a bear market, right at a perfect spot for a bull market to start. So that's my view on theta. Let's see here. What about the 4-year cycle? You guys, everybody and their mom thinks the 4-year cycle is going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're going to do opposite of what everybody thinks. Now, if nobody thought the 4-year cycle was going to happen, then maybe I would think, okay, this could be a 4-year cycle, you guys. We should probably be more careful to buy down here. But fact of the matter is that this market is behaving differently than what we have ever seen. And the 4-year cycle isn't going to happen just because everybody thinks it is. So I'm not a big 4-year cycle supporter in terms of what I see in these charts. It doesn't look like a 4-year cycle. So can you look at ADA, please? Yeah, we can look at ADA. Cardano on Binance here. Let's isolate it on itself. Remove. Oh, those are my indicators. Okay, there we go. So if you guys want to know what's happening on Cardano from a perspective of market cycles, Cardano is pretty straightforward and simple here. Let's pull up Cardano here. And let's pull up IXIC. And just take a look at this. We'll go to the longer or the linear chart and take a look at the NASDAQ. So here's the internet bubble on the NASDAQ. Let's go to the 15-day time frame. There we go. Here's the internet bubble right here for the NASDAQ Composite Index, all right? And here's Cardano. Now, where do you think Cardano is at in its cycle? Are we in euphoria? Here's euphoria on the NASDAQ. That was the top of the internet bubble right here. That was the euphoria phase of the market cycle here. Okay. What do you think? Where do you think Cardano is at? Are we in depression? Are we in euphoria? Where are we at in the cycle? Well, this is the disbelief phase of the NASDAQ right here. This is the disbelief phase before a new cycle started. Before a new cycle starts, you're always going to have a disbelief phase, and then you come out of that disbelief phase and you go into a new cycle, right? So if you look right here, right, disbelief. Do you see that right there? Let me pull it up on Paint. Here we go. You can see this right here. This is disbelief of the market cycle right here. That's the disbelief phase. And it happens before a new cycle starts. Right? Can you see how it's at the very end of this chart, way over here to the right? That's because it's right. That's what happens before a new market cycle starts. You're in disbelief, and then a new cycle starts. Why is it called disbelief? Well, it's called disbelief because people are in disbelief that a new cycle is going to start. And if you look at the NASDAQ right here and check out what happened here, we had a disbelief phase in 2008. That's what happened in 2008. We had a disbelief phase for the NASDAQ. So where's Cardano at in its cycle? Well, you know, you guys can, I know people out there that think this is the euphoria phase, or that we're in complacency right now. You want to see where complacency is on a market cycle? This is complacency. You don't get complacency at the bottom of a bear market. You get complacency at the top of a bull market. All right? This is complacency. I know a lot of people think we're either in euphoria or complacency on a lot of stuff right now. You guys, you want to look for complacency after a big run, not after a big drop in the big picture. You have to understand the context of where you're at in the freaking cycle if you want to see this stuff accurately. So this is euphoria right here. Here's euphoria on Cardano. Here's disbelief right here. That's exactly where we're at in the cycle on Cardano. We're doing a double bottom just like how the NASDAQ did. That's where we're at in the cycle. So a strong recovery is going to happen in this market. I will bet anything on that. Like I'm super confident that that's what's coming for this market, a recovery based on the cycle. And I've seen enough of these cycles and done it long enough to know how this works, to have that degree of confidence to say, you guys, this is likely going to have a very strong recovery, a very nice recovery. So that's what I see for Cardano, is a recovery, that we're in disbelief and we're going to recover. Matt Osty says, caught the weekend live stream. Heck yeah, smash those likes. Well, thank you. XRP analysis, please. Yeah, XRP is another really good setup, you guys. Back again to what I was saying before. People are trying to call a top on an uptrend. But XRP just started an uptrend. It's not in a top. Let me go grab a drink of water because I'm like deathly thirsty right now. So give me just a second. So people try to call it top, you know. This is why I titled this live stream, Crypto is Not Done Going Up Big Picture. Because, listen, people try to call tops. Watching over the years on X, on TradingView, on YouTube, everywhere over the years, how many times I've seen people try to call a top on an uptrend, and how many times they're wrong. And if everybody's trying to call a top, then you can pretty much guarantee it's not going to be the top. So, yeah, people try to call a top on something like XRP, but look at this. If you look at this, this is what markets do. They start uptrends. And then when they start an uptrend, it's called the first impulse wave in the uptrend. So let's go to 2-month time frame right here. Okay. This was the first impulse wave in this current cycle for the S&P 500. Obviously, it was uptrending before that. But if you're looking at this like this, and you click like this, you can see here's our first Elliott impulse. Okay. All of this was wave 1 and 2. So there's our first impulse wave in a market cycle for the NASDAQ. Actually, this is the S&P 500, but the NASDAQ and the Dow Jones look pretty similar. So that's the first impulse wave. So what is the market going to do? It's going to see an impulse wave. Then you're going to get some type of corrective structure, some type of drop, reaccumulation. Then what happens? You get another impulse wave. So this is the way that markets move. They move in a bullish impulse wave, followed by correction consolidation, followed by another bullish impulse wave, and then correction consolidation. Or if you're in a downtrend, they do bearish impulse wave, upward correction consolidation, bearish impulse wave, upward consolidation, bearish impulse wave. So that's the way markets move, okay? So what blows my mind, boggles my mind, is that people will try to say that this is the top of XRP. That, oh, XRP is done. You know, $3.58, that's it, you guys. We're probably going to come all the way back down to 50 cents again. That's what people are saying for XRP. But if you really understand trends and the way markets move, this first impulse wave is followed by what's called the first sell-off pattern. That first sell-off pattern is the first corrective structure, the first sell-off that happens before the market goes parabolic. And if you're looking at XRP right now, it looks awfully similar to the S&P 500's first impulse wave, followed by the first sell-off, which would be the first consolidation correction before another bullish impulse wave coming in the market. That's what XRP looks like. So again, boggling my mind that people are trying to say this is the top of XRP. What makes you say that? Do you just because it just looks like it might go down? Or do you actually have some basis in reality other than just a stupid EMA level that you're like, oh, we've dropped below the EMA, you know? So anyways, my mug is really cool here. Check this out, you guys. This mug. Fix my hat. Look like a dork when my hat doesn't go down far enough. I kind of look like one anyways, but whatever. See this right here? World's best trader. Okay. And then over on this side right here, high altitude investing logo. So this mug was given to me by one of my followers. She made like $1 million trading and investing in crypto, and she was super thankful. So she's had this mug custom made and sent to me, which was pretty kind of her. So, but anyways, this is what you have to do in the markets, you guys. You have to understand the uptrend. You have to understand the correction consolidation, which is most of the time a reaccumulation before the market goes higher. And this is also another reason that kind of cued me into the Bitcoin bottom. So if I go to Bitstamp over here, when Bitcoin hit 3,000 per coin right here, do you see this right here? This right here, this 2017 cycle was a big, I like to call it a Trump pump, because Trump was put in 2016, and then 2017 was like super, super prosperous, really fun. But it took a whole year before it finally came to effect, right? But yeah, 2017. But look at this, you guys. This is the first sell-off. So when Bitcoin came back down to 3K per coin, I was looking at the charts and I was thinking, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the S&P 500 when the S&P 500 crashed and its first sell-off pattern before it started uptrending again. And so when Bitcoin was worth 3,000, I was thinking big picture. I was thinking, what's happening here in the context of the bigger picture? And the chart looked like this. Like this, right? And just looking at the chart, even though people were trying to call for 500 per coin, even though people were trying to call for 1,000 per coin on Bitcoin, to me, I just zoomed out all the way on the chart and said, you know what? This looks like the first sell-off pattern in a bigger cycle. That's what it looks like to me. So this is the way markets move. Up, bullish impulse wave, correction consolidation, bullish impulse wave, correction consolidation, right? That's the nature of these markets. So just let that solidify in your mind, because the better that you have an understanding of that, the better of a trader you're going to be on, no matter what time frame you're trading. You know, say you drop down to the 1 minute time frame. Let's go to Binance coin, or Bitcoin on Binance. Okay. Let's use Coinbase because Binance isn't the right one isn't popping up for some reason. Okay, let's go to the 1 minute time frame here. Okay, what do you think is happening here on the 1 minute? Now the 1 minute's going to be more volatile. It's not going to look quite as clear, but this is the same thing that happens here on the 1 minute time frame too. If you look at the market, we have bearish impulse wave, correction, consolidation. Bearish impulse wave, correction, consolidation. Bearish impulse wave, right? Or on the upside, look what happened here. Bullish impulse wave, correction, consolidation. Bullish impulse wave, correction, consolidation. Bullish impulse wave, correction, consolidation, and it ran out of juice and started going down. But you can see how the market is doing that. So this is why, if you have an understanding of this principle, then you can look for another leg in the trend. If you're uptrending, you can look for another leg up. If you're downtrending, you can look for another leg down. And you're able to, position yourself, hopefully buy the bottom of those correction consolidations like right here before the next leg up happens in the market. And what was cool about this too, if you're part of my VIP membership, then you know that we went short right here. That I posted a sell-off signal around right here, because I was looking at this 1, 2. So not only can you find this, not only can you find the bullish impulse wave correction consolidation, but one way to determine a reversal in the market is using Elliott waves. So when the trend goes in the other direction, you're looking for wave 5. So I posted a sell signal on the short term for Bitcoin right here, and the market dropped, right? So you can short. I saw the 5-wave structure and thought, okay, well, we're probably done doing bullish impulse waves here. We're probably going to have a correction, and that's what happened, right? We had an ABC correction down. So this is the nature of these markets, okay? Even look here on the 15-minute. This speaks exactly what I'm talking about, okay? Bearish impulse wave, correction, consolidation. Bearish impulse wave, correction, consolidation. It's not random. These markets are moving according to technical analysis, the stuff that you see in a technical analysis book if you buy a good one, So, or on the big picture, look at this. Bullish impulse wave, correction, consolidation. Bullish impulse wave, correction, consolidation. Over and over again, right? That's how the market is moving. Water is for the weak. Water is good, man. I love water. Hey, Dallin, you were right about measuring from swing low to swing high, and then shorting to the 50% or the 618. Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. I'm so glad that I learned about that little principle from I'm trying to remember who taught me. I've bought so many courses and read books and had mentors and different things that I forget exactly what I learned from where. But once I learned about that 618 principle of the 50% and the 618, that's where the algorithms are buying or selling in the market. You can see that happens over and over. So you can see from swing high to swing low, the whales, the algorithms, the trading bots, they all started to short the 50% Fibo right there. It doesn't work. It's not 100% kind of thing, but it's enough that it's like super important to be aware of, how often, if you go back test how often the market does this. Swing high to swing low, right to the 50% fib. That's where the market shorted, or even along the way up, you go from swing low to swing high, and then the market came right down to that 618 level. So it's either the 618 or the 50% where you're going to see reversals a lot of times in either direction. So it is pretty useful to understand that. Proof of mine says SUI. Let's pull up SUI. On the 45-minute here. First, we'll start on this time frame. So this is actually what people don't realize. This is a bullish engulfing right here. So if we go to the 4 hour, no, let's do a little bit higher, maybe the daily. Yeah, there we go. This is a bullish engulfing candlestick right here. So that's a super big buy signal here on the daily to have this big bullish engulfing candle. And obviously, it could fail. It's not like every single trading pattern is 100% accurate. In fact, I don't know of one trading pattern that's 100% success rate. But the bullish engulfing is very, very powerful. So if you look bullish engulfing candle here on Google Images, it's basically where the buyer candle, the body of the buyer candle is so big that it engulfs the seller candle. So see that red seller candle here? Do you see how the green buying candle, the body of the candle is engulfing? It's bigger than the previous one. Here's some other examples right here of bullish engulfing. And if we look right here, here's another bullish engulfing right here. If you look at SUI, this is a huge bullish engulfing candle on the daily, which is a buy signal here on the daily candles. So even though we pulled back down to support, if we hold the support level here, this could easily see a reversal. So, but you'd want to watch, you have to watch the 50% of the 618, where we need to hold this area. We want to see the bulls defend this level within the next couple days. We want to see some type of a strong reaction, or even if it took a week, even if the market did this and just, went like that for a week, we want to see some type of a bullish reaction for the market to defend those levels, because if they fail, it's, we could still go lower. This isn't a guaranteed to hold. But the bullish engulfing candlestick pattern, very, very powerful. So on the daily, it's looking bullish. In the bigger picture, what I was talking about with XRP and with markets and first sell-off patterns, it 100% applies here to SUI. Let's go to this bigger time frame. So this is going to take different shapes and sizes, different way the market's going to look. But this first sell-off pattern on the S&P 500 is the same thing that's happening to SUI, but it's just a different type of correction. SUI did a zigzag correction, and the S&P 500 did an expanded flat correction. So expanded flat versus a zigzag correction like this. So that's the first sell-off pattern. This can easily see a V-shaped recovery, just like the S&P 500 did right here. A V-shaped recovery and continuation is 100% can do that. I mean, look at the volume on SUI. To me, it's almost exactly like the S&P 500. Yes, not every horse is going to have the same color skin, fur coat on it. So we're going to have different versions of this type of structure appear in the market. That's the way these markets work. So yeah, they don't look exactly the same, but it's the same type of thing happening to SUI that happened to the S&P 500 right here. And so I firmly believe we will have a big run on SUI. What do you think about ICP? Where will it top this cycle? Those kinds of questions are really hard to answer because, like I said at the beginning of this live stream, calling a top is like really, really, really hard to do. You're picking a needle in a haystack. So what you have to do instead is, instead of trying to call tops on markets, you want to buy dips and then scale out when the market's going parabolic over time. Slowly reduce your risk as it gets more and more euphoric and more greedy. As people get more and more irrational, you have to slowly reduce your risk. Because the fact of the 100% truth of the matter is that there isn't a soul on planet Earth that knows exactly what price point it's going to top at. Nobody knows. And most people don't understand trading and investing or the rules of trading and investing. So most people are going to try to call tops the whole way up. But nope, when the true top comes, probably nobody will call it. Very few people will. But everybody's trying to call a top right now. But the point of the matter with ICP, if we pull up ICP, I don't know how high it's going to go. But I do firmly, based on charts and based on the analysis of this market, based on technical analysis, I see this as being extremely undervalued down here. This is not a euphoria of a market cycle. This doesn't look like this. It's not like up there. So it's not like it's in euphoria right now. It looks like it's in depression of its cycle, or the disbelief phase to be more precise. Somewhere either in depression or disbelief right here. So a cycle should start for ICP, and it will start to run, and nobody knows what price it's going to go to. You can use Fibonacci extensions to get an idea. I'm not going to go into details about exactly, where it could go right now. But I will say that this is a time that favors buying, and as the market starts to go parabolic and starts to run, starts to have a reversal, then you want to think about how can I take profits on this over time, scaling out of the market instead of trying to cherry pick a top, But I am bullish on it. If you're wondering, do I think it's going to go up or down? I definitely think that this favors buying and that it will have a run. Harjay Verdi says running flat over the longer time frame. That is, I don't know exactly what you mean by that. Bitcoin Cash. Yeah, we'll do that in just a second. Proof of Mind says, I feel like you could throw money into any of the top few hundred cryptos during alt season and make a ton of money. Yeah, that's exactly what you can do. In fact, because I foresee an alt season coming soon for the crypto markets based on what's popping up in Bitcoin dominance here, because the Bitcoin dominance chart, again, back to me being blown away that people are trying to call a top on the market, because the Bitcoin dominance chart does not look like it did at the top of any of these cycles. This is what Bitcoin dominance looked like at the top in 2017 and 2018 right here. This is what Bitcoin dominance looked like at the top in 2021 and 2022. You know what Bitcoin dominance looks like right now? It looks like right here before alt season started last time. So even Bitcoin dominance is not screaming top. It's screaming, hey, look, we still need to have this crazy euphoric run in altcoins. This big, crazy, bullish run that hasn't even happened. We really haven't even seen that happen yet. So I expect Bitcoin dominance to drop off pretty hard here. So if you're remembering what it was like during the last two alt seasons, or even just the last one, if you're newer to crypto, it was like that. You could literally just throw money anywhere and come back a month later and you had made 40 times your money on some random coin that you didn't even have to know anything about what the project did, And that's happened in crypto twice since I've gotten into it. And that's what alt season is. And that's really what these charts are set up to do. Again, the altcoin markets look exactly like they did last time. I mean, look at this. This is crazy. It's crazy to me. Here's Litecoin, okay? Let's pull up. So here's Litecoin right here. Let's pull up Litecoin before 2017 happened. So before we had the big crazy run in 2017, this is what Litecoin looked like. Let me pull it up and I'll show you. Okay. Let's go, like maybe the weekly. Probably be good. So check this out. This is what Litecoin looked like right before the 2017 altcoin season happened. Look at Litecoin right now. Doesn't it look exactly the same? It's crazy. It looks so similar. Or how about Digibyte? Okay, maybe you're a Digibyte fan. Let's pull up Digibyte. Look at Digibyte. Doesn't that look exactly like Litecoin before the 2017 crazy alt season happened, where you could throw money, you could put a blindfold on and just randomly click the buy button on 10 different altcoins on Binance and then come back, you know, I guess Binance wasn't out in 2017, but you could put a blindfold on and just randomly buy a bunch of altcoins on Poloniex or Bittrex and then come back 3 months later and you made 50 times your investment. That's seriously what's about to happen in these markets. That is 100% what we are set up to do. That is 100% what we're set up to do. Look at Digibyte. Look at Litecoin before 2017. And then you go look at the Bitcoin dominance chart and it looks like it's ready to fall off a cliff. Not saying Bitcoin will, because Bitcoin runs during alt season. It goes up, but just altcoins go up like crazy. So Bitcoin dominance falls off a cliff. This is what I see in these markets, okay? We are set up for some pretty exciting days ahead. Thoughts on Metis? You know, I'm glad you brought Metis up because I haven't looked at the chart in a minute. And last I remember, I do like it in the big picture because of this whole alt season that's coming and stuff. So let's see. You know, this to me, this just looks like a falling wedge breakout here. Let's see here. Well, kind of a falling wedge, a little bit of a wedge there that we broke out of. This is the kind of stuff that can happen in markets before reversals, though. It looks kind of like injective in a way. If we pull up injective here, it looks really similar to injective. So this kind of crash right here can happen. Like I said, I expect to run an alt season, coming soon. So this kind of crash right here can happen in a market before it runs up, you know, before you get a run in the market, just because it has to shake all the retail out. Everybody has to flip bearish. They all have to think that it's going to go lower, and then you're going to get an alt season at that exact point in the market when all that stuff kind of happens. So yeah, it's actually kind of the same thing that injective did right here before injective ran up, you know. So what do I think that Metis will do? I think Metis will probably break out bullish and see a run, you know, just like how injective did right here when it broke out like this. I think Metis will do a similar kind of thing where Metis sees a run here. This is just a typical crypto bear market that people are for some reason bearish on the bottom of, like they always are, instead of, you know, they should buy instead. Let's see here. Only crypto R pulse chain will melt faces. You know, I definitely think it could. Richard Hart has a lot of liquidity and he can just pump billions of dollars into stuff. Pretty sure Richard Hart owns more Ethereum than like the Ethereum Foundation or something crazy like that. Let's see here. QNT. Let's pull up QNT. Yeah, so same kind of thing here, you guys, right? I'm expecting a big run in alts. They look exactly like altcoins did before 2017 happened. If we're comparing Litecoin to QNT, there's a lot of similarities, but my favorite comparison for QNT is actually to compare it to the NASDAQ. So if we pull up the NASDAQ here, if I can find the right QNT chart for quant here. quant quite find it. I'm trying to do a pun, but it's kind of hard to do. Let's see here. My dad jokes. I'm not a dad, right? But I've been practicing, and my dad jokes are so bad. Uh, See what I mean, though? Like, even before I bring up the fractal that I like to compare here, just look at Litecoin on the right before 2017 happened, and Quant here on the left before what I expect another alt season to have happen. Very similar structure, you know? Very similar structure. So let's pull up. I think the best way to do this would just be to go to charts.cointrader and pull up QNT right here, because I'm going to get the full picture, the full chart. And we'll go to the weekly here. Okay, here's Quant. Okay, let's take a screenshot of this like this. Let's go over here. Okay, there's Quant. Let's go over to Trading View, IXIC, and we'll go like this. On the weekly, maybe. It's worse. Let's do 3 week. Okay, so here's Quant. Okay, or the Nasdaq, and then we'll compare it to Quant. Okay, so here's a typical market cycle. Internet bubble pop, double bottom right here, massive bull market, right? If you look at Quant, look, even me just switching between these two charts. Let's invert the color of Quant here. Adjustments, invert colors, and we'll change the hue until it's back. Okay, there we go. So here's Quant, right? Look, even if I just switch between these two charts like quickly, here's the internet bubble and the recovery that came after. Here's Quant. Do you see that? It's the same freaking chart. It's the exact same thing. So buying Quant right now is a lot like buying the stock market during the crash in 2008. It's a lot like buying, this crash right here that happened, and this double bottom structure, and then the internet bubble or the crypto bubble. Like, it's the same thing, the same structure in the market. So am I bullish on Quant? Yes, I think we will have a big alt season, and Quant will be part of that in a big way. What are your thoughts on Pulse Chain? Like I said, he has a lot of liquidity and stuff like that. He could pump the market pretty hard. I don't have I don't hold any Pulse Chain, but I used to be like kind of a hater on Pulse Chain. At this point, I'm just like, you know what, you guys, he's probably going to pump the living heck out of it. Richard Hart has a stupid amount of liquidity. Like, he could pump pretty much any coin he wants to. And I know he's got a new coin coming out, so some people are like, is he just going to dump his old coin and not do anything with these anymore? People are like worried about that. But I think he will pump Pulse Chain. I really do. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be left behind in alt season, if that's what you're wondering. I'm not like a big Pulse Chain person, but yeah, it could definitely pump. When do you think we will really start taking off? I think we're going to start to break out the rest of this year for crypto, but especially in 2026 is going to be like the big year for crypto and especially altcoins. And we're going to have 2026 be what everybody wanted 2025 to be. So that's kind of my view on it. Proof of Mind says Litecoin is lagging so hard this cycle compared to other coins. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes nuts to 1K or something. I think Litecoin is getting ready to do what XRP did. XRP is getting ready to go for another leg up. Litecoin is getting ready to do the same type of breakout that XRP just did. When I say just did, I mean from 38 cents up here, because I know in the super immediate time frame we pulled back a little bit, right? But I'm talking this type of a breakout right here. That's what I really see coming for Litecoin. So let's pull up Litecoin here and let's look right here. I mean, if you look at the charts, let's pull it up right here. Here's Litecoin on the right, and here is XRP over here on the left. So even just kind of looking at the charts, like right here and then right here on Litecoin, yeah, I think we're going to have a breakout soon. So, yeah, I'm bullish on Litecoin. All right, I'm an hour and 10 minutes in, you guys, and as much as I love every single one of you, I've been helping my sister set up her new house. She just bought a new house, so we've been going over there, my family and I and stuff, as much as we can to help her. So I'm going to call it a day, but thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's stream. Hope you guys enjoyed it, found some value in it. If you did, share it with your friends. Like I said, I'm super bullish on crypto, big picture. Even the short term, I'm bullish too, especially if the 618 and 50% hold on the 45-minute for Bitcoin. And yeah, things are still looking good. There's no reason to just change your big picture position on anything, and this market is going to favor people that are buying and taking risk and holding on and preparing for a big alt season. 2026 is going to be nuts. I really, really see that coming. So anyways, I look forward to seeing you guys in future streams and videos. And as always, stay profitable out there.